in 1973. Yeah.
You know that thing when you're 18 you have to sign just in case there's like a war? How long does that last?
I'll tell you in just a moment here, okay?
Forever.
The thinking, people were so against this war and the idea that people were drafted to go to Vietnam that the consensus in Congress and stuff was to get rid of it. The draft ended in 1973. You did not have to register. No, they just weren't going to have any more draftees. Everybody was now going to be professional military where you volunteered to go. In 1979, the Soviet Union invaded Afghanistan. The United States feared we would go to war in the Middle East over oil, directly with the Soviet Union. This is like Red Dawn kind of thing, right? And so we reinstituted draft registration to prepare for that war. If I can spell it. Just rage. In 1980. So we did like a halfway measure. So since 1980, if you're male, well, upon your 18th birthday, you are to register for the draft for selected service. And the way you do it is go to www.sss.gov. Selective Service System. Very simple.
Now that women have combat positions open to them, how long is it going to be until they have to register?
No. I'll get to it in a minute. Okay. So how long does it last? Okay, so you are eligible for once you register, and all you do is basically put in your basic information, your vital statistics kind of thing, and you're in the system. You will be eligible if there is a draft between the ages of 18 and 26. So once you hit 26, they're not going to want your old age. They want you young.
The army, same thing, right?
It's just for the military in general. And then so if there were a draft, so just so you know, and then I'll come back to what you're talking about. If there were a draft, Congress first has to pass the law and say reinstitute the draft. Then 180 days after Congress passes that law and the president signs the bill, so actually from the signature of the president's signature, 180 days later, or half a year later, then the first draftees will have their numbers pulled. Your number you'll get, if you were registered for the draft, is based upon your birth date. So it's a randomization of your birth date. So they take 366 numbers and assign them randomly to different days of the year. I'm including leap day, okay? That's why you're going 366. Some people were born on February 29th. But anyway. So they have this random number, you have a draft number, and then they will draw randomly a number. Everybody who matches that number, essentially everybody whose birthday, all these guys will have the same birthday, will go down to be assessed for the draft. You get a physical check, they determine your physical ailments and so on, and you will be given a classification number. 1A means you are prime material, ready to be drafted, you're in good physical shape. 4F means, no, we don't want you at all. You're a physical mess or something like that. And there's all sorts of classifications in between, depending upon what your individual circumstances are. For example, if you've been in the military, I think that's a 3C, and you are out. You don't have to be drafted. You've already done your bit. And then people ask things like, okay, well, what if I'm the only son? Sorry, that's 1A. That just means that bad luck, everybody else, you just have a bunch of sisters, that's just roll the dice. Or you're the only son, you're the only kid, oh well, mom and dad didn't get around to having anybody else. But if you are the sole surviving son, your older brother or younger brother was killed in war, or your father was killed in war, you're out. Your family has paid its dues. And there's all sorts of other stuff. You serve in the military of an ally of the United States, you've already done your bit. Stuff like that. It has to be an ally. It can't be just, I served in like the Costa Rican Army. No. There's certain lists of which ones there are.
What if you turn 26 right when the president decides?
Well, you don't have to worry then, do you? I am technically still registered for the draft. I registered back in 1980. I was 20 years old. I fit into that period of time. Now I know you guys do the math. I turned 54 in 2 months. And I feel like I'm still 28. In my head, I'm still 28. Okay? It's like, then I look at myself in the mirror and go, what the fuck? But, that's where my mind is. Okay, but anyway. So yeah, I had to register. Now, when I reach 26, I'm on the inactive list. Theoretically, if they were really pulling the, it was a major emergency, they could theoretically draft me. They could just raise that number. It's just an act of Congress. Congress decides. But that's how the draft works. Is there any way you can get out of it? These are usually, well, there's 2 or 3 ways to do it. One is a conscientious objector. It's called 1AC, 1AO, I'm sorry, 1AO. This is, you have a moral objection to the war. And you have to prove it to a board. There's a board called a draft board who will make that judgment call as to whether you truly are morally opposed to war, or you just found God after you got your number called. So it has to be something that's part of your cult, part of your personality, part of what you told your friends in conversations and so on, what you did even before there was a draft. And then a board could grant you that. Another way is if you're a divinity student. If you're working on to be a minister or some kind of religious minister, you'll be given a deferment until you finish that degree. Same thing for a college degree. College was the way out of the Vietnam War. As long as you were a registered student with at least 3 units, your draft was deferred until you finished college. Think about what that means. You could just fuck around for years, right? Take 3-6 units, hang out at Evergreen forever, and avoid the draft. And that's what people did in the Vietnam War. They avoided the draft by just signing up. That's how Dick Cheney got out. That's how Bill Clinton got out. They just became perpetual students and got college deferment. That won't work today in today's modern draft. If it happens, if you are in the midst of, if the draft occurs, say, like right now, today, when you're in the middle of the semester, you will get deferment until your day of your final. And then the next day after finals, off you go. If you are a graduating senior, that you're going to get your bachelor's degree within the next semester, following semester, like December, they'll defer you until you get your degree. And then they'll send it off. That's about your only deferments from college. Because in the Vietnam War, it was unfair. Think about it. Those who had the ability, the wherewithal, the privilege, the money, could stay out of the war. Those who couldn't go to college, have the money, would go in. Can you imagine what the relative ethnicity was of U.S. troops after a draft? Right? People of color tend to go more than the white folks. Didn't seem fair. It's true, it wasn't fair. Modern draft does not have that. You can't escape by staying in college. How else can you get out? Besides being clinically insane or something like that. But the other way to get out is if you have a relative who is absolutely dependent upon you, and there's no one else that can take care of this person. And it's like a 24-hour-a-day job hunt. This person is your dependent. You can get out. There's a couple other ways too, but you have to actually do something. If you work for the National Weather Service, you're out. You know why? Because it's considered a strategic defense, part of the strategic defense of the United States, is to know what the weather is. So if you work for them, you're out. What's the other one that you get the exemption? Oh, if you're in an elected office of some kind, like you're the mayor of San Jose, you're out. So run for office. Beat the draft. Otherwise, you will be very egalitarian by luck of the draw. But you'll still have a draft board that has to make these judgment calls, especially on conscientious objection and upon whether somebody is a dependent upon. Those are kind of the 2 things that they have to make calls. There probably will not be a draft in the way it works today, because it would be a 2-year draft. If you were drafted, you would be in the military for 2 years. The problem is it takes about a year to get you ready to go, to train you, to get you familiar with all the equipment and so on. And so they'd only have a year of you to fight with. Unless they change the way the draft works and you drafted till victory, like in World War II, then that would be more reasonable. So that's the primary draft. Then there's a secondary one, medical personnel. What if somebody, we need medical people. So here it would be between ages 20 and 45, men and women, based upon your medical skills, nurse, doctor, whatever it is. If you work in a hospital or something like that, in some kind of medical area, even like a radiologist or somebody like that, you can be drafted to serve for the military for their hospitals. That's on the books, so to speak, as a possible draft. And then they're thinking about it, especially in the last year, of putting women into the draft. Because now, if you think about it, if you were a woman in the U.S. military up until last year, there were glass ceilings. There were certain things you could not serve in as a woman. Right? For example, you cannot get, up until last year, you could not get a combat infantry badge in the Army as a woman. Because technically you cannot be in a combat unit. You have to be in a support services unit of some kind. Well, if you're a career military person, especially an officer, and you're a woman, you will never get to the top. Because that is one of the tickets you must punch. That's one of the medals you have to wear, is to show that you've been in war, in combat. And you look at those generals that sit there and, like you see them on TV and stuff, and they're reporting to Congress. If you could read those medals, it says, I was there, I was at these wars. Oh shit, I got shot at this one. If you know how to read these medals, it says to them exactly what his service record is. The highest ranking woman in the military right now is a 3-star general. She can't go any higher. She will never get any higher because she doesn't have combat experience. That doesn't seem fair, right? If you're a career woman in the military, so open up combat experience. So last year, the Defense Department said, no restriction. You now have women in submarines. You have the first tank units being put together right now with women crews. You're going to have combat women. Next, you're going to have women starting to get shipped to Afghanistan in combat. And by the way, women can fight. You're going, oh no, they can't do that. I know some women who could easily handle a saw and blow out people. And she's been working out. This kind of thing, So, some people, by the way, your status of whether you're gay or not doesn't matter anymore. We used to have don't ask, don't tell. Just didn't tell people you were gay. Now it doesn't matter. You can be openly gay and serve in the military. No problem. So again, that won't be a way out of the draft. It was in the Vietnam War. All you had to do is go. Guys did this. They walked into their draft board thing to get their physical in a dress, acting as clear as possible, so that they could get a 4F saying, homosexual, and then get it written off. And it worked sometimes. Well, it doesn't work anymore. So will women go in the draft? I don't know. Depends upon what the emergency is and why the purpose. What would make sense would be that way. But then, of course, there's the other side of it. What is it that women can do that men can't do? Have babies. I mean, isn't that kind of one of the points of the war, is to protect the population? That's why historically women have not been in wars. The men protect the women. Go all the way back to caveman, right? It goes this way. So I don't know. Israel is the only country that actually drafts women. And the women are in for 3 years. When you're 18 to 21 as a woman, you're in the IDF. And then men, it's 3.5. You have to do it to protect the country. So that means every woman in Israel under the age of about 50 or 70, I'd say, knows how to work a machine gun. There's a scary thought. When you think about Israel, these women know how to use their guns. Not Sarah Palin style. But, really. So,